Greetings, beautiful people of the earth. I am JC from the JC and Shaman show, and the attorney in the video that I am showing you right now came on to the talk show and had a conversation with Shaman and I. I am going to be playing that conversation in this video, along with I am going to take down the video that you are looking at right now about the attorney because he gained a lot of my respect and we had a really good conversation and good debate, and I hope you all enjoy it. I am just conspiracy, and I just wish to conspire with other good people of the earth to leave a better world for future generations than the world we all grew up in. Please enjoy the show.
Yeah, I see that. He says I'm here.
Yep, I'm here. If you guys can hear me.
All right.
Okay, there we go. All right, so now we can mute everyone else out.
Okay. Let me, moderator. All right, I'll mute everybody else out. And you guys, go ahead.
So how's it going, man? How are you doing?
Pretty good. Can't complain.
Yeah, you had a pretty good day?
Work is work. So it is what it is.
Yeah, thanks for coming out tonight. This is Shaman. We really appreciate you coming on. What would you like us to call you tonight, man? Like what handle would you like to go by?
You could just call me Artie. That's fine.
Artie? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that works better than our Texas
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Alright.
So Artie's fine.
And my real name's Sean. We just have our JC Shaman titles just for the show, but my real name's Sean. So if you want to refer to me that's fine.
Yep, not a problem.
My real name's John. So anyways,
Easy enough.
Before we get started, Sean and I were just wishing to establish some basic principles that we probably all agree on. And, I think one that Sean just brought up before the call, we can all agree that we're in the search for truth, right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, and then the next fundamental principle is that we can agree that slavery has been abolished and deemed unlawful and illegal in all of its forms.
Yes.
Okay. And the third one would be that everybody has the right to believe in whatever they wish.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Awesome.
And the
Pretty good foundation.
Yeah, and the fourth foundation, this will be the last one, is that basically people, man, woman, every individual has the uninhibited ability to contract.
I guess it depends on what you're trying to contract into.
Okay.
I mean, I guess the idea is, what are we talking about in terms of contract? But that's more of you have to go into the weeds of the subject matter, though. But I would say generally, yes. Generally speaking, yes. But I would say there might be some caveats depending on where that discussion lies.
Okay, so generally everybody has the right and the ability to contract. I mean, obviously, you would understand the contract clause from the Constitution, Article 1, subsection 10, where it basically says that no state shall write any laws interfering with the obligation of private contracts.
With the obligation of contracts, yes.
Yes, the obligation of contracts.
Right.
So basically, man and man can make private contracts, and as soon as they do so, they are obligated in those private contracts.
Again, it depends on what sort of contracts we're talking about here. I mean, but I guess unless you got to be more specific than that, then I would generally agree. Again, in a general sense.
Well, probably something along the lines like if I agree to mow your lawn for $30 and you agree to pay me $30, then that contract is binding between you and I. Nobody can intervene on that without our effective consent.
Generally, yes. In that sort of hypothetical, yeah, I'd agree.
And also, not just, entering into contracts, but also the right to not contract. You have the right to not contract with somebody if you wish.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't have to mow your lawn, and you don't have to pay me.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. Now that we have those basic principles established, I guess a good place to start would be your answers to the video about right people. Could you explain that a little further?
Which one are we talking about?
The answer, there were 3 answers to the 3 questions in the video, right people. Like,
I see, yes.
Yeah. So the first answer was nonsensical questions. The second answer was yes with due course of law, and the third answer was yes with due course of law.
Right. If I to recall your video, you said that you should ask 3 questions. 1, 2 was your high clerk asking whether or not there is a court of law, and not a court of statute. And then the second one was to ask the legislature, do you have the authority to pass law that violates my rights or takes away my rights? And then you ask the same question of the governor. Is that a generally?
I'm not into law. So basically, it's your position that they do have the authority to take away your rights?
With due process of law.
With due process of law. Well, okay.
It depends on what the circumstances of what's being challenged. The Constitution says, Fifth Amendment, the government can't take away your life, liberty, property without due process of law. Well, due process of law is, it depends on what is being taken or what is being challenged.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that if you go out and commit murder, they can absolutely take away your right to freedom by locking you into it. So
right.
I agree
but that due process is they have to, prosecute you. You are entitled to a notice, hearing, trial, all of that before they take away your freedom. That is due process. At least procedural due process.
So let me ask you this: is the procedural due process that you're speaking of, is it an administrative due process or is it a due process of law? And we're going to make this a little bit easier. Okay, so we'll just say, for kicks and giggles, we'll just say I got arrested with an ounce of marijuana in my possession.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I'm getting dragged into court. They gave me notice, right? They summoned me, and now I'm getting dragged into court for possessing the ounce of marijuana, and they're going to charge me with intent to distribute because it's over 28 grams. Okay, does the legislature have the right to take away my right to have that marijuana on me?
Yes.
And where does the legislature obtain that right from?
Generally, the legislatures, or at least the state level. At the state level, they have what we consider the general police powers of the several states, which is that the states have that leeway to pass laws and regulations pertaining to the health and welfare of its citizens, which can include, limiting or regulating the illicit substances.
Okay, well, that's nice. It's wonderful that they have the power and authority to regulate the health and welfare of their citizens. What if I'm not a citizen?
Well, the laws that are passed by the legislature apply to everybody within its territorial borders. So if a non-citizen, if an illegal immigrant is caught with 15 ounces of marijuana, they could still be charged with possession of that 15 ounces of marijuana.
And do you consider, I'd like to ask a question, do you consider that due process of law that the legislator can remove my right to smoke and possess marijuana?
I don't know. I don't understand what you mean. How is it, due process
Well,
of
if the
law?
legislature gets together
Mhm.
and these group of men sit in a room and then they decide what they believe is healthy for the people and whatever they believe is right, are you saying that they can remove my right privately to do that, and that you consider that, because you said before that rights can be taken through due process of law. So if they just take my right to smoke and possess marijuana without talking to me about it, you consider that due process of law, as my understanding of your earlier answer?
Well, it depends. Well, I guess an earlier question would be is whether or not, possession of that substance is in fact a right.
Well,
I mean, that's one question that you can ask. Another way of looking at it is that the legislature didn't just appear; they were elected by your peers. They are presumably, I'm going to put it a caveat, presumably acting upon the people who put them into office.
And I completely understand the people who put them into office. I agree with you. They are bound 100% under their jurisdiction. What about the people who write them and say that if you wish to exercise your jurisdiction over me, you can contact me right here. Like, I don't give you consent. My vote is the vote of no consent. Okay? What about those people who say, I don't wish for your citizenship status?
Well, the nature of our system of government is that you are still bound by the territorial jurisdiction of the state that you're in and the government that's in, regardless of whether you decide to participate or not.
Is that a process of law, or is that an administrative procedure? It's really just a process of law, or is that an administrative procedure?
What is an administrative procedure? We're conflating two different things here. We're now going into the nature of political theory and the nature of how citizens, how people administer themselves by governance. Due process of law is a far more specific aspect of administering the law versus what we're talking about here.
Well, can I, if I may, I'd like to bring something to your attention then. Can we agree that, as stated in your Declaration of Independence, something that you're saying, you're using the word our system of government, okay, that's a belief, right? Every man has a right to his belief. We've already established that. Mm-hmm. So if you go to your Declaration of Independence, with the default position being that JC and myself do not claim citizenship, doesn't the government derive its just powers from the consent of the governed? So once a man or woman expresses that they do not consent to said governance, but wish to govern themselves according to their own belief, does the government at that point, do the government actors have authority to govern.
Yes.
Can you explain
And
why?
where do they get that?
Because you're still residing in the government's territorial borders. Whether you believe that you're under their authority or not, the reality is everybody is subject to the jurisdiction of the laws of the government that's in place.
Okay.
I think that comes down to where we have this fundamental disagreement here. You don't get to opt out just because you don't like what's going on. Your mode of opting out means leaving the country. If you don't want to abide,
Can I
fall under the rules that are in place within the jurisdiction, then you got to take it out of here.
Marty, isn't that what slavery is? Like, slavery is when a group of people or an individual subjects somebody to their expressed will by force. We've already agreed that slavery doesn't exist.
Well, I kind of
subject. If you're a subject,
I think we have a fairly different view on what slavery is.
if I may, like JC and I actually talked about this, but I'm going to go ahead and bring it. Like, I want to ask you a question. Do you understand the difference between venue and jurisdiction?
Yes.
Because you keep saying territorial jurisdiction. Okay, so from your language, will say I live in Tennessee. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have a house, and on that, there's land that house sits on.
Mm-hmm.
Is that Tennessee?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Is that the state of Tennessee?
If your house is within the borders of Tennessee, yes.
Okay. Now, why do police officers need warrants? And how come when they pave the road in front of my house, they don't pave my driveway? And why don't they upkeep my house and paint my house and fix the guttering and mow the grass and sow the seed and do all the things that my house requires? Because the state of Tennessee, which is on a piece of paper in Nashville, owns certain properties. Right. And those properties are absolutely under their jurisdiction and authority. And those that work for the state of Tennessee are subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And those who consider themselves citizens through consent are absolutely bound by all the codes, rules, statutes, legislative acts, and so forth, okay? As well as the natural law, like you can't murder, steal, So, that being true, if my house doesn't fall within that case, see, I'm in the venue of Tennessee, should I do something wrong? Or should I consent? Like, hey, come here, please. I need your help. I've invited you. Or you can obtain a warrant to come on the land. See, if it was the jurisdiction, which means control, of Tennessee, then you wouldn't need a warrant. Because you could just come on because you have jurisdiction automatically. But see, you can't do that. You have to gain jurisdiction. And you being an attorney know that in court, it's necessary to gain jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is not assumed.
No, it may be presumed. A jurisdiction, every, law that statute, and I know we're going to have a disagreement on what we define the authority of statutes, but the statutes always say that, the judiciary is of each state and their jurisdiction is defined by the legislature, by their respective constitutions. And then from there, it'll say, the state of New Jersey has, or the Superior Court of the state of New Jersey has the jurisdiction for all criminal actions within its territorial borders. That is territorial jurisdiction when it comes to criminal law. So,
okay.
The fact that you have private property,
I got no problem with the territorial
not the same
jurisdiction
thing as jurisdiction in a criminal action.
Hey, the first thing that I'm going to disagree with you on here is that the legislature actually does not have the power and authority to define the judiciary branch of government or the judicial branch of government because of the thing that's written into every single constitution called the separation of power. Okay? So, of course, the legislatures can write this stuff down, and that's all good for, PR stunts, like to show the people, hey, this is where we get jurisdiction from. But the actual essence of the Constitution of the United States and of every state that has to be subordinate to the Constitution of the United States within the bounds of their own Constitution, one of the very fundamental principles is the separation of powers. One of the very fundamental principles is that the legislature and the governor cannot control the judicial branch. Because that's the balance of power.
I have to absolutely disagree with you in the sense that in New Jersey, our judges are appointed by the governor. I know that's not the case in most other states, but there's one aspect where the executive has a check on the judiciary. The legislature has the ability to create new courts. For example, we have drug courts that are specific to more rehabilitation and a separate avenue for prosecuting drug crimes. It's entirely a separate court system, and that's formulated by the legislature. Meanwhile, the judiciary still has the ability in New Jersey to rule legislative and executive actions unconstitutional according to the New Jersey Constitution. So there's your checks and balances, and there's your separation.
And that's of course all true, and the legislature does have the right to create their own courts. Okay? The problem with jurisdiction is the right to exercise your court upon somebody else. Okay? So it's kind of like what Sean was just talking about with venue jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is basically when you have a cause of action, you have the right to exercise your court among another individual. And again, as far as citizens go, as far as the voting public goes, as far as the people who consent and submit to the legislative will, of course they have jurisdiction over those people. It's the people who...
I'd like to kind of point out an elephant in the room, if I may, Artie.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be this. Now, bear with me here. I'm not being rude. Just watch where I'm going. Do you consider yourself to be a lawless man? And do you consider the courts of New Jersey to have lawful jurisdiction and power?
Well, as far as your first question, I'm not exactly sure what you mean. As far as the second question, yes.
Okay, in your professional capacity, you believe what you do is both legal and lawful, recognizing there is a difference between legal and lawful.
I see. That's another thing I've heard that I really don't. I think it's a distinction without a difference.
Okay, I'll narrow it down to just lawful. How's that? In your professional capacity, you believe you're doing lawful acts, correct?
Sure. Yes.
Okay, but according to your argument against us, you guys are in open rebellion against the King of England, and what you did was an act of tyranny or terrorism, and everything you did was wrong. Thereby, principally, you're kind of lawless. Even if the king capitulated to a degree, they were completely lawless then, right? So they didn't have any lawful right to act in a rebellious nature through revolution, right? Revolution. Okay. So you would say that George Washington and all those cats were lawless terrorists who had no authority or right to do what they did.
From a perspective, yeah, you could say that.
Okay. So then actually what you guys are doing is the same thing because you're a part of that company. Well, you'll call it a country, I'll call it a company. So we'll use your term. They call themselves a company, but your term, so we'll say country. You're a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that stemmed from so if you start something lawless, then principally speaking, it's continuing its lawlessness, correct? Because we're talking about right and wrong, free and slave.
So wait,
slavery would be
what you're
making somebody do something they don't want.
So are you saying that since the time of the revolution, the United States has been acting lawlessly by virtue of rebelling against King George? I guess I'm not understanding where you're going with this.
No, I'm saying it started there, and principally speaking, what you guys were doing, because I mean, essentially, you're just carrying on the old traditions. Like you guys just seized power and shot people in the face and blew them up, and that's what they did. I mean, they burned people and tarred, feathered them, and did all kinds of crazy stuff. And then they just started making up their own courts and making up their own government and their own officers. But somehow that translates to good as long as you're part of that system. Like what happens if we say, well, we don't consent and we're going to open our own court? You guys would say we're crazy. I know that because we've been told that. So I'm just curious, like all this power comes from like there's only man and woman. There's no reptilian race or any of this crazy stuff, you know. We're not into all that. What we say is there's man and woman, right? So every court, every government, every country, every corporation is started by a man or a woman. Okay, so there's no special group of people. So who gave you guys the authority? Like slavery to me, let me define it for myself. I'm not going to define it for JC. I'm just going to do it for myself. If you put a gun to my head and tell me to clean your floor and I don't want to, I'm a slave. If you tell me I have to get your permission to go to Ingles to get some groceries, or you're going to shoot me in the face or put me in a cage, that's slavery. It's also tyrannical. So that's what I say slavery is. So I don't know, could you define slavery, and then maybe if you could remember everything I said. I know I said a lot, so I don't hold you to all of it, but maybe if you could go back and address some of those things. But I really would like you to define what you believe a slave is.
Slavery to me is being forced to work without pay. I think I certainly wouldn't exactly ascribe to your definition of slavery because I know exactly the context and how you're describing it.
So if I came to your house and said, "Hey, you, come mow my lawn, or I'm going to shoot you in the head."
Yeah, I would say that
would be okay.
I'd say that's that's forced labor and kidnapping. But yeah. Threats, extortion.
Okay, so what if you force me to show up for driving school, or you're going to put me in a cage? Isn't driving, like if I went to school, that's work, right?
If you went to, I'm sorry, say that again?
Yeah, like if I go to school, let's say I go to college, it's a lot, like you, man, you earned your stripes. You earned your title. Like you worked really hard for that. So if you tell me, like, I've decided that 45 miles an hour is all you can do on this 18-mile open stretch of road where you can see 2 miles in each direction because it's unsafe if you don't, and I'm doing 46 miles an hour, which is a Class C misdemeanor in Tennessee, and the cop pulls me over and says, look, you can go to driving school, and if you don't, we're going to put you in a cage. I'm being a little melodramatic about it, but that's just for the effect here. So I know I'm fully aware that it could go that way or it could not. But let's just say it does. Let's say he says, let's take jaywalking. Hey, you, don't walk there, but this is where I wish to walk. Yeah, but don't walk there. I'm going to fine you. Well, I'm not going to stop, and I'm not going to pay your fine. That's a lawful command. Well, yeah, but I wish to walk over here. Now, that cop right there has a decision to make because he can stop me with whatever force is necessary, up into shooting me in the head. So what if I just don't want to walk there? Is he willing to kill me for that? And you wouldn't construe that as slavery? I mean, that's an example of not working. The driving school would be an example of working without pay, because I'm not receiving any pay to go to driving school. You guys are just, it's just being extorted out of me to keep me from getting these things called points and to reduce a fine. So there's two examples. One, that way, and then one just not doing what I'm told.
Okay.
And if I may, like, your definition of slavery is work without pay. What is income tax if it's not work without pay?
It's a tax. Taxes. Wait, you want me to define taxes for you?
No, we know what they are.
No. But
I mean, are we seriously going to now construe an income tax or any other tax like a form of slavery? Is that what I'm
You
hearing?
don't think
well,
so?
you have to pay money.
No.
You have
Taxes
to work.
suck, but I also
You don't
understand
make
that
the
they're a necessary evil. Taxes are a thing.
Necessary evil?
Yeah. I mean,
Interesting choice
So
of words.
is it lawful?
but I mean, if you, what else do you want me to say? 16th Amendment was passed. The Congress says you can tax your income. I don't like it. I think it sucks. It sucks getting all my withholding taken away, but I also know it's a part of life. Death and taxes, they're a thing.
So you're just saying that somebody can just say, look, you working, if you don't cut me in 20%, I'm going to jack you up, dog. What's up? Well, why do I have to pay you? Because I'm the government, yo.
Okay.
Right? I'm the government, and
Mhm.
I am giving you permission to feed your family, and because I'm allowing you the luxury of feeding your family, I'm going to jack you for like 15, 20% of your pay. If you don't like it, I'm going to put you in a cage and take all your stuff. You don't consider that slavery?
No.
Wow.
But by your own definition, you
I mean,
slavery
at what point do you guys? I think honestly, it's one thing that I'm hearing a lot from you guys. Like, you definitely have a thing when it comes to authority, and I get that. I understand that. That's something I've seen over and over again. But it does seem to me like you guys don't have an understanding of what do you say is going to happen if the authority is taken away? Like, you guys, a lot of you guys operate on a sort of like natural law, the golden rule of do no harm. Apparently that's all you guys seem to like operate quote unquote under. So if I were to take a baseball bat right now and beat the shit out of your car, put in $500 of damages, how are you going to find me liable for that?
Oh, I'm going to get my $500 out of you.
How so?
You're either going to give it to me in court or you're going to give it to me in person.
Oh, fuck you! I got a gun. Try me, bitch. See?
So do I.
Do you see other? So essentially, it's either mob rule or vigilantism. But you also said to go to court. But these courts are all corporate, lawless courts, though, right? So they're not.
Well, this is why I brought you in. Well, this is why I brought you into the conversation.
So your only option now is to try and take it from me by force.
Isn't that what you guys do?
Well,
that's why I led you into that conversation.
The whole premise behind government is so that having a redress of grievances that doesn't lead to violence.
Really?
I mean, are we seriously having a civics lesson right now?
Let me let you in on a little secret.
Society and how society governs itself.
Well, sure. Let me let you in on a little secret about me, though. Okay. Like, I know you say you guys. Like, I know what you're lumping me into, but I got news for you. I was a police officer for 10 years.
I know. I saw the video. My brother's a cop.
Okay. So I'm not a sovereign citizen. Those people annoy the hell out of me. That's not what we're saying. So I'm not, we're not lumped into the you guys category. That's not who we are. And John's got a little secret for you too. He went to law school.
And how
okay.
do you?
that means nothing to me.
Well, it should.
I mean, whether or not you used to be a cop, you used to go to law school. I with all due respect, if it looks like a duck, sounds like a duck, so far y'all are quacking.
Hey, I'm just asking you. Sovereign is a king, right? And a citizen is a subject. How does one be a king slave?
Well,
Like,
you'll have to go. Well, see, John, I love how you brought that up. You guys, I know a lot of you guys get kind of triggered whenever somebody uses the term sovereign citizen. You'll have to take that up with the guys from the 70s. When they first brought these ideas into court, they called themselves that. So you'll have to take it up with them
that's
from
silly.
like 50 years ago. And I guess the name
Well,
stuck.
we think it's silly.
Well, okay, that's fine. But if you want to know why or where it came from, it was from y'all's ancestors, so to speak. So it's not something
Y'all?
that
Were you from a different planet?
I was just asking what a sovereign citizen is. Like, that's all I was asking.
Oh, well,
isn't that what it was, man?
The basic, I mean, a basic is somebody who, for one reason or another, believes that the laws don't apply to them.
Laws or codes?
Hey, whoa. Just back up there, because the laws absolutely apply, okay? And this is something that you said we have a disagreement on, and that's between lawful and legal. And lawful is exactly what it sounds like. It's full of law. And so some laws that lawful is full of would be municipal. That's like in your area of law and understanding. Written or statutory, ordinances or edicts or decrees. That's in your law of understanding, okay? But here are some other ones. There's the law of physics, the law of nature, the law of nations, moral law, ecclesiastical law, Mosaic law, ceremonial law, bylaws, which is another one that you're probably familiar with, martial law, maritime law, you're also probably familiar with those as well, commercial, judicial,
law of gravity,
and the one that I law of sovereigns, how sovereigns treat one another.
Don't forget the law of gravity, man.
Right. But I would like to think that we all understand the distinction between a scientific law and a law in the context of the legal profession, legal.
Okay.
I mean, in terms of judiciary, in terms of governance, the law in terms of governance and a scientific law are two distinct things.
Let me ask you a question.
Understand that.
Who has the power, you or the people, in your belief? Like, do the people that created the courts and the government and the officers and vote y'all in, and y'all mean you keep saying y'all to us, so I'm going to lump you in with the y'all on your side. That was a little levity, man. So who's in charge, the people or you? Are you a servant of man or their ruler? Like, is Trump a servant or does he rule the United States? In the United States, Tennessee, look, the United States is a 10-mile square piece with some Ford stockyards and things. That's under Title 18. It's all over the Constitution. That's their territorial jurisdiction, special territorial and maritime jurisdiction. So,
whose
I'm
jurisdiction?
asking, are they rulers or are they servants? Servants or rulers? Like, just your belief on that.
As in Congress and the presidency?
Yeah, we'll just take Trump. That's easy. Everybody knows who he is.
Okay.
He makes sure everybody knows who he is.
Right.
The orange guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he runs.
The really rich orange guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He runs the country because he was elected by the people through the Electoral College.
Well, runs it. That's fine. So he executes. That's great. Is he a ruler or a leader?
He's a leader.
There's a
Or is he,
difference.
well,
That's not semantical. Okay. So
well,
he's not the
supposedly leader. Well, we won't get into that.
So the loathliest bum on Martin Luther King Boulevard, who has no money, he's a drunkard, as one of the people who voted, actually has more power than Donald Trump as president because he's his servant, right?
I don't know if I would say it like that.
I mean, isn't that the reason
when
we told
you elect
the king to
somebody,
kiss our ass and we
to an
left England?
office, you are granting them power. When you
limited power.
Right, limited power.
Limited. Okay, I'm just making sure. But if you get your power from me, then you're not my ruler. You're my servant. I'm allowing you the privilege to serve me.
Okay.
And now you have duties, obligations, and privileges according to your rank within that society, correct?
Right.
Okay, so if you come in and tell me I got to do something I don't want to do,
well,
you serve me. Get out. What are you doing? That'd be like,
no,
okay,
I'm
work
sorry.
for me mowing
Shit.
this guy's grass, and
if
you come and tell me, man, you can't have it both ways, Bubba.
Yeah, no, let's put it. I'm sorry, but you don't get to.
Okay, go ahead.
No, there's no givesies backsies here. you
okay? You can take
you
waitsies. I don't care.
To
That's
give
all right.
them a limited power. That limited power may grant them the ability to do something that you may not like.
Maybe.
Hey,
maybe.
Artie.
Again, we're going into the weeds of governance here, rather than.
Well, that's what we wanted to do, man. We got to mow the
reality of our system of government is. Right now, we got to go through. We're having a very good discussion on the theory of how a society is supposed to function, but as far as what the laws actually are and who what is currently in play, that I don't know if we've really gotten into that yet.
So you believe statutes and codes?
I believe statutes and codes. What?
You believe statutes and codes come to the level of law to mankind? Yes,
they are law. They're a form
so
of
it's
law.
right up there with the sun. The sun rises and sets, and the moon doesn't spin, but goes around the earth, and gravity and all that. It's the same level, like gravity.
No, because that's a scientific law, and a law of governance is something different.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Why are you conflating scientific laws with statute?
It applies only in certain venues, right? Because a venue is like science is over there, that's one venue, and then we have this over here, that's another venue, right?
I'm sorry. What? I mean, are you saying yes? There's a difference between a law that is passed by a legislature and a scientific law. What? Why are you conflating the two?
Artie, just a moment ago, you said that they have the power because you gave them the power, speaking of the public, okay? Because the men and women who went out and voted gave them the power, correct?
Correct.
Okay, well, what if they choose to take that power back and exercise it for themselves? Because that is the idea, that's the fundamental principle of a Republican form of government. Not a democratic form of government, a Republican form of government. A Republican form of government, legally defined, is that the people hold the sovereign power and they can choose to elect officials to exercise that power on their behalf. A democratic form of government, which it has historically been called mob rule, okay, is basically that the individual has no power and that it is the mob that rules. 51% beats 49, and whatever they decide, they can beat you into submission of doing which is why democracies are where republics go to die. And you can see that in Greece, and you can see that in Rome.
Okay.
Okay, so if you give them the power, then what's stopping you from taking that power back and exercising it for yourself? And if you can't take that power back and exercise it for yourself, aren't you working at the point of a gun for somebody else? Isn't that slavery?
No, because you keep on saying that you have the ability to opt out of the system. And that's where I still can't wrap my head around that. You think that you can, I'm going to follow the law that I think is right, and fuck the power. I'm just gonna still live in the same state and reap the benefits of it. I don't get to pick and choose the laws that are passed by the legislature. I can vote them out of office, or at least try to vote them out of office. But do you think I like paying my annual registration? No, I think it's a fucking racket. But it is what it is. I got to do it. I want my car taken away.
Well, I mean, I've never paid
JC, Sean. Hey guys.
Yeah.
I was just curious. There's something that I've always gone back to, which I think might help this conversation. I'm from New Hampshire. I'm now in Minnesota, but when I was over there studying constitutional stuff, the New Hampshire Bill of Rights has the rights of conscience at Article 4, and I just pulled it up, and it says, among the natural rights, some are in their very nature unalienable, because no equivalent can be given or received for them. Of this kind are the rights of conscience. And at the beginning of this conversation, one of the things you mentioned is, and everybody agreed, that we have the right to believe what we believe. Those are our beliefs. And West Virginia State Board of Education versus Barnett, the Supreme Court, that's 319 U.S. 642. The entire case repeats this over and over again, but essentially here's the one section, one portion of it that really defines it. They stated, if there is any fixed star in our constitutional constellation, it is that no official, high or petty, can prescribe what shall be orthodox in politics, nationalism, religion, or other matters of opinion, or force citizens to confess by word or act their faith therein. If there are any circumstances which permit an exception, they do not occur to us now. And so I believe what I believe. I have the right to my conscience, and my conscience dictates to me what is right, what is wrong, and therefore, thus I believe. And according to the decisions of the Supreme Court, these statutes, these codes can all be made, but you cannot force a citizen to confess by word or by act their faith in whatever that law is. You can pass laws all day long, call them laws if you will, all right, but essentially they're just the opinions of man at this particular moment in time, which can change next week or the week after. And it's the general consensus of conscience among that particular crowd, which has been voted into office, which comes up with these, 1 week you can collect rainwater, the next week you go to prison, smoking pot, whatever it is, selling raw milk. These are the opinions of man. They're not law. They're codes and statutes. And the Supreme Court has clearly stated that nobody, no officer, high or petty, can prescribe what shall be orthodox in politics, nationalism, religion, and other matters of opinion, or force citizens to confess by word or act their faith therein. Therefore, when I say I don't consent, I literally don't consent. That's it. That's the end of the story. And I'd like to hear some input from all of you guys on that particular thing before we move on.
Well, I'd just like to say, and there. I can wait if
Hello?
you want to go first, JC.
Oh, I was going to let Artie go first.
Yeah, go first, Art.
Well, I mean, that's fine. I mean, like I said, you do have the entitled to believe what you want to believe. But there's also, reality and the circumstances of what's happening and how we understand law and how we understand how society operates. That where I don't know if anybody, any sort of political, document or anything, any history that I've read where a functioning society can operate where anybody can pick and choose which laws they wish to govern under in their region. So you could say you don't consent. That's fine. But nobody's above the law. Nobody, and if the law is properly enacted within the society that you're in, it's going to apply to everybody because it has to, or else we are ultimately in a lawless society when somebody can just say, fuck you. I don't think stealing's a crime. I'm going to go take this guy's car. Your laws don't apply to me. I can go and trespass on your house and piss in your garden because fuck you. I don't care about your property rights. It's my own damn business.
Well,
So
What about when you guys
natural.
do that?
So
to address that, okay.
So that's my point here, is that where are we drawing the line here in what you can choose to, in what laws you can choose to follow and which ones that you don't like?
Well, I think it's
anybody
obvious that natural law you cannot choose whether to follow natural law or not.
Why not?
That is actually, because that's the difference between right and wrong. Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I can't walk over and
right
kill
and
your
wrong
dog.
is right and wrong is however the hell I view it is. So why the hell should I care what you believe right and wrong is? You see what I'm saying?
That's relative.
I mean, if everybody has a subjective opinion, so then there are, in fact, laws that you cannot. Everybody has to adhere to, whether they like it or not.
Okay, hey Artie.
We don't necessarily have to adhere to them, but there's consequences for not doing it.
Hey Artie.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. Okay, and you said it just plain as day. We live in a lawless society. Okay, because if statutes apply to all men and everybody the exact same way, then Thomas McAvoy Britton in Henderson County would be arrested right now. He would be sitting in jail because he took my body, kidnapped me, threw me in a cage for 48 hours, didn't file the paperwork until the middle of July when he did this in March, and there's evidence clear as day that he did this while robbing an 87-year-old Korean war veteran. And I don't know how much more lawless you can get. Like, I really don't. So, with that being said, and I'm not going to define slavery, but I'm just going to read a definition out of Webster's 1828. And it's the second definition, and it says, one who has lost the poser of resistance. And poser means something different back then than it means today. And poser is one that by asking difficult questions, close examiner. So basically, when man or woman quits questioning their oppression, they become a slave. And this is the second definition in Webster's 1828.
Okay, I've never heard that definition. Obviously, since it's Webster's 1828, but I've never heard that one.
So, you do understand that the Supreme Court uses the Webster's 1828 dictionary to define words.
Do they? Because that's another thing I do enjoy listening to, is because a lot of the times I do seem to a lot of folks that I've tried to just engage with, they tend, there's a consistency in using law dictionaries from 150 years ago. And I always found that interesting. Number one, because why are we using these old, outdated dictionaries? Number one. Number two, why are they treated as if they're gospel, when in reality, I personally have only seen a small handful of cases that have ever used a Black's Law dictionary as a source for defining a term. So I mean, if you say that the Supreme Court uses Webster's 1828, I guess I haven't seen the case law, but I haven't seen the case law, very many case law, maybe a handful where SCOTUS has used any dictionary as a reference.
I'll actually send you the article that talks about the Supreme Court using the Webster's 1828, the Johnson's Dictionary of Law in the late 1700s, and they go back because what I have found in the courts is that every court speaks the language of etymology. They all go back to the original meaning of words.
And I would have to absolutely disagree with you there. In the many of the videos that I've seen of your channel, that I noticed that you do that a lot. And I have to honestly look at, see, it reminds me of numerology, but with words, where I see you do look at the etymology of some of these words, and I'm looking at it and I'm wondering, in what way do you think that they're actually being used in that context? I'm sorry to interrupt, but please go ahead.
Let's just take one word, for example, like the United States Capitol, okay? Like you understand what the United States Capitol is, correct?
D.C., yes.
Yeah, Washington, D.C. So if you Google it and you look it up online, it will actually be spelled O-L instead of A-L, okay? Now, back in 1828, which wasn't long after they established the United States Capitol, the way that Webster's Dictionary defines capital with an O-L instead of an A-L is the Temple of Jupiter in Rome, the edifice occupied by the Congress of the United States and their deliberations. And if you go to the word edifice, it's basically, some type of court, like it's some type of church. Okay, it applies to temples, churches, or elegant mansion houses.
Okay.
Not to mention, to be fair, they used that. Sorry, thought you were done.
Well, so understanding the words in our society and the meaning of the words and how they were interpreted at the time that the people wrote the words that they're writing is highly important. I mean, you're not going to understand what they meant by those words if you don't understand the words that they were using, or you have a different interpretation of them today than the people who actually wrote them.
Well, I'll give you an example of what we're talking about here. I saw in one of your videos that you put in, you talked about you tried to break down the definition of attorney. And I saw you put in attorn and looked at it was some sort of feudal law or feudal original definition, saying like to turn or to turn over or something like that. And then I saw you go to a definition of a suffix with E or EY or whatever, and it had its own definition there. And then, but then right underneath the turn, you see attorney, And while you see where attorney also has some roots into the a turn, it said to see a turn. It still said definition was as to represent somebody or to turn in place of somebody else. In other words, you completely neglected or didn't bother to point out that the definition of attorney in there is precisely the definition that everybody else uses right now.
No, he absolutely. Okay, they're the same thing.
Hey, we'll just go with that. An attorney means to represent the person, represent somebody else. And if you go to a law dictionary or a legal dictionary and you look up what representation of person means, it means a fiction of the law. Okay, so an attorney, by representing somebody, is absolutely handing them over and creating them to be a fiction before the court. And a fiction is not true.
No, you don't become ethereal the moment that you hire me to represent you in court. You don't vanish into the fifth dimension.
No, you vanish.
You're still there. You're still there.
You go into the second dimension.
You're still there, standing next to me in court. You don't suddenly disappear.
Yeah, maybe he is. Maybe he's not.
Maybe I'm not going to be in court. That's the whole idea of hiring an attorney to represent you, is so that you don't have to go to court. It's like the whole reason that they have attorneys is because some rich guy was like, I'm making too much money not going to court, so I'm going to pay somebody to go to court for me.
Plus, the word represent is actually represent, so it's like re-present. So like you're coming in a different capacity. If you're not in the same capacity, you're not.
That's also kind of laughed at by everybody involved.
Well, it's laughed at by you guys.
Represent, represent is sophistry. Sorry.
So the Bible's retarded when it says replenish the earth in Genesis. God didn't know what he was saying.
No, I'm not saying anything about the Bible. I'm saying something about mispronouncing represent as though it's supposed to mean something different than it does.
Well, wait a minute. If you're representing me, aren't you doing it and I'm not? So am I not in a different capacity then?
I'm sorry?
I think
if I was real.
Hey, Sean.
Wait a minute. If I was real.
Hey, Sean.
Yeah, I'm listening.
I believe the fundamental basics of that is as a man in court, I can claim my rights, but if I'm being represented, all the attorney can do is notice the court that the man has rights. He can't actually make the claim for those rights, and I think that probably defines what you're trying to say.
Well, that's what I was kind of getting ready to say, Gus. I was getting ready to say, if I'm in there in a different capacity, I'm no longer a man with rights. You're representing me so in a different way. So I was one way, now I'm another. So we can say it's represent me, because now you've changed me. I've changed myself into something else. It's not semantical.
Yeah,
it's just English.
It's a semantic argument. Sorry, I mean so do
you believe the rules of English apply?
The whole premise behind hiring a lawyer is to hire somebody that you believe has the knowledge and skills to protect your rights. The idea that you think that your rights are somehow foregone because you have somebody to litigate on your behalf is absurd. Sorry.
Okay, let me ask you a question. I'm going to ask you two. Do you believe the rules of English apply when writing something?
Like
if you're writing a court document, let's say you're writing anything, but we'll just say, do you believe the rules of English apply? Like proper grammar, pronunciation, suffix, prefix, ambiguity, parentheses, you understand, right? So, like, do all those things apply? Like, when you write a document, doesn't it have to be a certain way?
It has to be
bold,
in
all caps.
Yeah,
boxes,
there
lines.
are formatting requirements, but yes, in
Okay.
writing your brief, you got to be, it's got to be something that the judge and the other party can understand. Yes.
Okay, there you go. So things like caponyms, parenthetical thoughts, colons, semicolons, all of these things have very specific and meaningful understandings and definitions.
Right.
Okay, so we agree on that.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so if we're talking upper lower case, and I'm actually going to let JC get into this because he loves to talk about this more, and since you and him have the dial, but if we change, like I'll use our infamous, like if I say, hey, let's go to the Rocky Mountains, and I write you that, and it just says lowercase Rocky, lowercase mountains. That's kind of ambiguous, right? It could be any Rocky Mountains. But what if I write capital R, Rocky, capital M, mountains? Now we know what Rocky Mountains we're talking about. Can we agree with that? Because it became a proper noun, correct?
Right.
Okay. So if somebody writes something like, say, people, and they change the P from a lowercase to a capital and the W to a capital in the rules of English, wouldn't that make it a proper noun?
Wait, what's W is capitalized? I'm sorry.
We the people.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Like Rocky Mountains, right? We've already agreed on
Right.
it. We agreed that became a very, okay. So we the people is no longer ambiguous. Like, hey, you, come here. If I say that and there's 100 people in the room, everybody's going to go, who's he talking to? Okay. So we the people, the P is a proper noun. Who does it apply to? Keeping in mind the Constitution is a contract, a legal document, and certain people, we understand what a contract offers, consideration and acceptance. People signed it. Who was it for?
It's supposed to be for the people of the colonies that were there in 1789, and what it was written for. I guess you're asking me who is the people there is, well, the people that it was intended to, apply to. So the citizenry of the 13 colonies.
And you're positive that's your answer?
I mean, yeah.
But keep in mind, it's a contract. It's a contract. Now, can you, we talked about
yes,
if
right? You want to call it a contract, go for it.
It is a contract.
Right.
It's not what I want to call it.
What are you saying? So what are you saying, that because you didn't sign on to the Constitution doesn't apply to you?
Well, Antonin Scalia and many others, yeah, I'm absolutely saying that. They said it, not me. I mean, I just agree with them.
Well, I don't care what Scalia says. What you saying is because you didn't physically sign the Constitution, it doesn't apply to you. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying they said that. They didn't specifically express Sean, but
well,
yeah,
do you agree? Do you agree with what he says? I think you already answered that question. You agree with what he says?
Yeah, it doesn't apply to me.
Okay.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with me. It was written for a very specific group of people called the United States, which is Congress Assembly.
Well,
Articles of Consideration are very specific about what the Constitution is, or what the United States is. They define it, not me.
Well,
they do.
I hope I don't mean to spoil this for you, but you're in the United States.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not in Congress. I'm not in Congress.
Have
you ever read the Articles of Confederation?
You're in the territorial borders, so I mean,
you're
in the United States, man.
No, I'm not.
I know that's what you think, but I hate to break it to you.
Okay. Let me get you back to something different. And, I do think that it's interesting that you disagree with the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court has kind of consistently ruled time and time again that the Constitution does not apply, like the federal Constitution does not apply. And with you,
does not apply to who?
Does not apply to citizens, like the state citizens. And I'm sure you going to law school.
Please provide me with the Supreme Court decisions that say that. I would love to see those.
Okay. We can do that.
Whenever you get a chance.
Yeah, we can do that, no problem.
The Supreme Court decisions would say that the Constitution does not apply to what you say state citizens. I would love to see that.
Oh, that's no problem.
And what you're talking about is the doctrine of incorporation with the 14th Amendment, when they did apply certain...
I'm not even talking about that.
...to state citizens. Okay?
No, the incorporation was about importing the Bill of Rights to the states, not just simply the state citizens.
Yeah, because contract with one another. That's basically what the Constitution of the United States of America is. It's a compact between the states on, how they're going to govern themselves. Because the states are guaranteed a Republican form of government, but the federal government on the federal level is a democracy, and it has to be a democracy because it has to represent a unified front to the rest of the world. And that's the whole idea behind the United States, and that's why they're not individual states.
Okay.
But regardless of all that, let's get back to this idea of, court and interpretation and how you write and speak to the court. I understand why
you're breaking up really bad, John.
Yeah, JC, you're breaking up a little.
Okay, well, that's not me. Somebody else's phone is getting static or feedback. But, I understand why you believe you have to format and make court documents a certain way. But let me ask you this. Is it imperative that you understand the court, or is it imperative that the court understands you?
I would say it's a mutual understanding. I think it's imperative that if you want to understand each other, you both got to understand each other. I think it's a mutual obligation.
Okay, so if you go in there and you don't speak lawyer language, you didn't go to law school, can you just put in documents the best way that you understand how?
Mm-hmm.
Without formatting them, without making them, all these capital letters and all these capital words, and, you put these separations on this part of the page, and you put parties over here and the title over there. Can you just write like a normal document as any man or woman would understand how to write, say something really simple, and file that into the court?
Well, that depends on the court's rules. I've always been with the understanding, and a lot of courts will say that when it comes to pro se litigants, the court is should relax its formatting, as what you said, formatting rules, and construe the pleadings liberally. I think you mentioned that in the video. So in terms of you have to have the captions exactly the way it is, and within the margins of each sheet of paper. No, however, you still have to be able to present something that can be comprehended, that's in, English that they can be comprehended, but also be able to state whatever claim that you're making. In other words, you still, if you are bringing an action against somebody for, for the baseball bat incident, you're suing me for damages, you still have to put in the elements of what's required in an action for damages. You don't necessarily have to have it nice, neat, clean cut, grammatic, and perfectly formatted, but you still are obligated to have those elements for a cause of action.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I agree with you there 100%. Okay? But the main thing that I'm getting to is, and this is just your words, you said you have to present it to the court. Do you have to present it or represent it?
Present it.
Okay, so you present it to the court. So you can present yourself to the court. You do not have to represent yourself. You do not have to be pro se.
Well, represent and pro se are it's again it's a distinction without a difference. The fact, just because somebody say you're a judge says, are you going to be representing yourself? All that means is that you are not hiring an attorney. You are running this show on your own. I see it. I don't understand where the idea was that by saying somebody saying that, are you representing yourself, that it has some sort of legal significance versus saying I'm going to present myself.
Okay, well, I mean, you have the right to that belief. Undoubtedly, you have the right to that belief. But
I've never, again, in my years of law school, I've never heard of any sort of legal significance being conferred between somebody saying, I want to present myself, not represent myself. Most people just look at that as, what are you even talking about?
Okay, that's fine, and you have the right to believe that, as I said. But I can give you verified firsthand testimony, and I'm sure a couple other people on this phone could as well, that when people start going in and they say that they will not represent themselves, they'll say, I'm here, I'm present. What am I here about? I'm here, I'm present, I'm here ready to answer to whatever the charge is before the court. There have been certain jurisdictions that now, because so many people have done that, when they do roll call, they won't even ask if you're representing yourself or if you have an attorney or if you wish for a public defender. They actually now have people come up and sign a piece of paper as to what they wish to do, because the court does not wish everybody to see what happens when that actually happens. And I'm not saying that they don't run over it 80% of the time and that they don't keep moving forward. What I'm saying is that they proceed differently than if you say that you do represent yourself.
Okay.
And this is from court experience. This isn't something that's just on YouTube. This isn't some theoretical law stuff like I'm making this stuff up. Like, I'm telling you right now, under oath and affirmation, that I have seen this work.
Okay.
So why does it work?
I don't. I guess I don't. I kind of lost my understanding of what you're saying, that there is, that you were able to discover a distinction between presenting and representing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I believe that I've explained it pretty clearly through the videos, because when you represent yourself, like, how does one represent themselves if they're present at court ready to do something? Like, you're present, you're there. Why wouldn't you just do it? Why would you want to do it over again?
Again, all representing yourself means, the phrase representing yourself, all that literally means is that you don't have an attorney.
Okay, well, see, here's
Full
the
stop.
thing is that...
Full stop. There's no other, I don't
Hey.
know what else to say here.
You already agreed that there has to be a mutual understanding between myself and the court, okay? And so the court has to understand me and what I'm saying. And so if I see a difference in it, to move forward, the court has to understand. And if the court doesn't understand, then we can't come to an agreement to move forward on.
Okay. So a judge is going to ask you, John, or let's put it this way, John, do you have an attorney? And if you say no, then that's the end of the discussion, isn't it? Then we're moving on.
No, they always ask if you're going to represent yourself. As soon as you say no, you don't have an attorney, they always say, so you're going to represent yourself, or you're going to move forward pro se.
Okay, yeah.
So they have to get that on the record.
Right.
It's kind of like when you go and sue somebody with an attorney, always the first two things or the first three things on the piece of paper when an attorney starts an action for somebody that they're representing is, one, that the court has jurisdiction and venue because of some statute. Two, that this individual is a citizen of this county, of this place. And three, that the individual they're suing, upon information and belief, is a citizen of this county and this place. And it's up to the actual individual who's getting sued to confirm that for the court. Because it's only upon information and belief.
Yes, that when you're filing a complaint, yes, you're making those allegations in your pleadings.
Yeah, so you're saying upon information and belief, and we'll just say I'm getting a divorce, okay? So even though my ex-wife has been living with me, and I know that she lives right down the street because we trade off our 2-year-old child, every other third day, whatever we decide to work out. Even though I know all of those things about her, I still have to write down on that piece of paper, upon information and belief, I believe she's a citizen. I cannot confirm it. She can confirm it.
Right.
Okay, so that's basically the same exact principle. Like when you go in there and you say, no, I don't have an attorney, and they say, okay, so you're going to represent yourself. They cannot confirm that. They cannot presume or assume you're going to represent yourself. They have to ask you.
Okay.
Because you have to confirm that for the court.
Right. I guess I'm not seeing what's the issue here.
The issue is that present and represent do not mean the same thing. And so the court moves forward differently if you're present at court than if you're representing yourself before the court or in court.
And if I may, I'd like to add this too. If it was just presumed that represent just meant you didn't have an attorney, why would they ask you anything else after they said, do you have an attorney? The only reason they ask that is because they have to find out what capacity you're coming to the court in. If it just meant, well,
no, that's also for clarification of the court. If you, because think about it this way: when you're being brought in on litigation, for example, the court doesn't know whether or not you're represented at that moment in time. They may know that you're represented. What the court is saying is that, in other words, the court is asking, do you have an attorney? No. And then the court's going to ask, does that mean that you're going to represent yourself? Most of the time, people will say, yes, I'm going to represent myself, or no, I actually plan on getting my own attorney. I just don't have one right now.
Okay, and then they're consenting to the contract because that's offer, consideration, and acceptance.
Everything's a contract. Oh,
Everything
man.
is a contract.
Yeah, I know. Everything's a contract, apparently.
So, but I mean, that's offer, consideration, and acceptance. They are offering you the ability to represent yourself or represent yourself. You consider it. You weigh the pros and cons. And you are correct. 95% of people or 98% of people or 99% of people are going to not question anything. They're not going to be a poser, and they're just going to say, yeah, I'm going to represent myself. And now the court has confirmed that they are representing the person before the court or in the court. Because they verified.
The person as in you.
Yeah.
Who's you?
You. But they're person and you, the same thing. I know you guys don't disagree with you, but I mean, I know you guys like to kind of like split your personalities, but yeah, you.
So when you were in school, let me ask you a question. They took roll call. They took roll call in school, right? And they say, hey, Sean, troublemaking guy who doesn't believe in authority and wants to do what he wants to do. Are you here? And I'd go, present. So if the word present and represent mean the same thing, why do they put the re in the front of it? And what would have happened if I said represent at school? Wouldn't it have sounded kind of funny?
Because we're talking about the context of a legal proceeding, for fuck's sake, man. Because
no, we're not. We're talking about
you have
language.
An attorney, it's representing.
You're
in a legal proceeding,
language,
so of course
brother.
you're going to. My goodness.
Hey, you agreed that language is important.
Yes, yes, and apparently I don't think that you agree that language is important because context is important. Context is also just as important as the English language. You're right. Saying represent in a classroom doesn't make sense. Saying are you representing yourself in a courtroom at an arraignment or in a civil proceeding? Yes, that makes sense to the layman.
Oh, I agree.
To the average human being.
I agree.
So then why are you saying that? Oh, it sounds weird representing yourself in a classroom context when you agree that sounds ridiculous.
No, listen, man. You're mixing the apples and oranges. I think it perfectly makes sense to say I represent myself in court. But it's also what JC is trying to say to you is why can't I say I'm present? I'm present at court. And why do you not think that's different? That's what I'm trying to establish. I'm not making any presumptions on you.
Because
I'm saying I agree with you. I agree with you to say.
Okay. Sorry. Please go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Well, I was just saying, once again, I just want to clarify. Expressly, I agree when the judge looks at you and says, are you going to represent yourself, sir? If I say, I'm present at court.
Because that's not answering
You're
the
saying
question.
The judge won't accept that?
They're not answering the question.
Yeah, I am. Okay, I'll say no.
The judge is asking you. The judge, basically in a different way, the judge is asking you: are you going to get an attorney, or not?
Hey, brother, I just told you. I answered him. No, I'm present at court.
So you're not going to get an attorney?
No, I'm present.
All right, thank you very much. We can move on.
Okay, so can they force you to do things at court?
Well, you are not actually fully entitled to going pro se, Ferretta versus California. Because in many instances the court especially when it comes to major. Well, it mostly reserved for major instances, like for example, like if you're in there for felony murder or something like that, the court is going to ask you a series of questions to at least confirm or at least put on the record your competency. Because in Veretta versus California, the court of somewhat let somebody who was essentially a madman decide to represent himself. The court said, fine, sure, whatever. And then he actually won when he put in, ineffective assistance of counsel, or in that sort of context. But essentially, yes, the court, depending on the context, can force you to get an attorney. If again, it depends on the circumstances, depends on the case.
Okay, I agree with that, but can the court force me to act like a defendant? Like you said, slavery is doing something without pay or without getting something back. Okay, so if the court is summoning you to act as a defendant, to be an actor in their court and act as a defendant when all you were doing was taking an ounce of marijuana to somebody that you were in contract with, and we already agreed that, no state can make any law that impairs the rights of private contract or the obligations of private contract. So I called up Sean and I said, hey, Sean, you want to buy this ounce of marijuana? And Sean said, yeah.
Stupid.
And now we're in a contract. And I'm driving it to him, and I get arrested. Can the court force me to act as a defendant because your definition of slavery is doing something, some type of work?
I mean, if in a criminal action, you're a defendant. If the state accuses you of a crime, then you are the defendant.
How is that a crime? Wait a minute. How is that a crime? I'm curious to understand how having a plant that is legal in Colorado but may not be over here, like, how is that a crime?
Talk to your legislator. But since you're not
part of the government, I don't have a legislator.
But because you don't have one, I mean, I guess it's tough shit, man.
Hey, Artie.
So you're just not going to answer the question?
How is it a crime? Because the legislature, in its infinite wisdom, decided it was a crime. That's my answer.
Hey, Artie.
So who did I harm?
Hey, Artie.
Nobody.
Hey, along those lines, if I may ask, we've got about 20 minutes left to the show, and I don't mind going longer, but one of the things I'd like to discuss is, do you have a right to face your accuser, and where is that right secured? If you've done no wrong to any other man.
Before we do that, and we can get to that quickly, the example of marijuana is actually great because they have legalized it in other states, which means that it is lawful. Okay, they cannot legalize something that is unlawful. Okay, so if you go and read the 13th Amendment, if you read it really closely, it says that slavery nor indentured involuntary servitude exist except for someone being duly convicted upon a crime, which means that not only does the crime have to be legal, it also has to be unlawful. Okay? So just the fact that other states have legalized marijuana proves that possession of marijuana is lawful. It's self-evident. It's prima facie evidence.
No, the states are their own sovereignty, so they can decide what they'll legalize or not legalize. The states have the ability to make their own laws, and just because Colorado legalized pot doesn't mean that New Jersey has to legalize pot.
It doesn't mean New Jersey has to legalize pot. What it does mean is that possession of marijuana is lawful. Like, it's lawful to possess it. It might not be legal.
It's lawful in Colorado, not in New Jersey.
No, it's legal in Colorado and not in New Jersey. Like, I
do not ascribe to the idea that legal and lawful are distinct.
Can the government legalize something that's unlawful? Like, can the government legalize you being able to come over and smash up my car?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Let's
Your
you have
local
the right
legislature can repeal the crime of burglary tomorrow, and congratulations, you can now commit the crime of burglary, and you would face no punishment from the state.
Okay.
I don't even know what to say about that.
I'm pretty speechless. So let's just get your thoughts and interpretations on your right to face your accuser and who the accuser is when you get found with an ounce of marijuana. Oh my God.
Man, we're not laughing at you. That's just, I can't believe that's the way you think government should be. Like, that is beyond.
But see, that I don't think I think that that's another thing. You just brought up a good point. I think there's also a distinction to be made on, what the government can and what the government should. I'm simply saying what they can do. They could very well repeal their entire criminal code the next day. Do I think they should? Of course not. But I mean, I'm just telling you.
So basically,
what they have the ability to do. I mean, again,
you do understand. Sorry, I'm sorry. I apologize. Basically, your position is you guys can do whatever the hell you want to us, and if we don't like it, you can shoot us in the face. We can't say shit about it.
Well, you
just
can
take it, dude. This is government, dude. We legislate. You just do what you're told. Stay in that crosswalk. I'm gonna bash you in the head with this.
I mean, do you realize that's what you're saying? Again, because you decide for yourself that you're not going to participate in the process, then yeah. If you're saying,
okay,
I don't want to participate, I don't want to vote, I don't want to talk to my legislator, talk to my local council rep, I'm not part of your system. I mean, yeah, you're kind of
so
running out there, because that's the entire premise
behind
our Republican government.
So I'm going to put it to you this way. Now we're going to move back to something, okay? I'm not going to make any presumptions on your belief, so just I'm expressing that as we go forward. But first, before I do that, can you please answer Gus's question? First, do you believe we have a right to face our accusers?
Yes.
You said I harmed no one by buying weed from John. Yet you arrest me, you drag me in, put me in a cage, make me bond out, set a court date. Who did I harm? You said no one. Mm-hmm. Who's my accuser?
The state.
Can the state take the stand and swear under oath or affirmation, having firsthand knowledge of the facts therein, that I caused any harm, injury, loss, or damage to property?
No.
Can I call as a witness the state
is not
of
a
New Jersey?
Entity, but
okay, so I can't face my accuser. Because a cop is a witness. I know this.
Well, you're
so
facing
we're not going down that road.
Well, the cop is going to
cop
testify.
Is a witness for the state, not the accuser.
The arresting officer is going to testify, isn't he not?
He's a witness. Where's the accuser? I don't care about a witness. Where's the accuser?
All right.
Accuser must appear. Where's the accuser?
The state. He's sitting across from you.
Where's he at?
Represented by the prosecutor.
Hold on. Hey, hold on. The accuser is
right into it.
The accuser is the man who has the right to make a claim, to lay a claim for damages on the record. Who is that man? The state cannot make a claim. The state has incurred no loss.
That's not how the criminal statute works.
It also isn't a who.
You're imparting civil concepts into a criminal context. You guys do that a lot.
It's not criminal to have a plant.
You're the one who said that.
The state of New Jersey says otherwise.
It can't talk.
You're the one who said that right to face their accuser. In a criminal case, this is not mixing criminal with civil. You're the one who said that people have the right to face their accuser.
Okay.
So we're not mixing civil and criminal.
Mm-hmm.
We're sticking strictly to criminal. Where's the accuser? Who's the man or the woman who's going to lay onto the record some claim of damage?
The arresting officer, whoever caught you with the marijuana. I guess is that if you're going to say it that way, then yeah, he's going to be the one that says, I saw Gus or Sean, with a bag of weed, or I, stopped him on the XYZ date. And then he's going, more than likely, the prosecuting attorney is going to put him on the stand. And then you, as a defense, have the right to cross-examine him. And there you are. You're facing your accuser.
At what point does that officer lay a claim on the record of a loss?
The
or
officer,
injury
there's no need for an officer
incurred?
to lay a claim. The officer is charging you with a crime. Again, that's you're imparting a civil context. You're imparting civil concepts into a criminal context. Claims are done in a civil context. If I'm suing you for damages, then I gotta be there. Yes.
All crime is commercial, which is also
no, they're not. Oh my God, they're not.
Yes, it is.
Stop.
Yes, it
is. Please stop, man. All crimes are commercial.
Hey, by the way,
are you
did you know
going to cite to me the what is it, the ATF regulation?
Let me ask you a question first. Did you hear what you said, by the way? You said you have a right in your defense. I thought we already established that you can't force me to be a defendant. I'm not defending anything. I never
said
wrong.
You didn't. I never said anything of the sort. When you are charged with a
crime,
you are a defendant. When you are charged with a crime, you are a defendant.
Yeah,
well, it's simply your moniker. I don't want to be a defendant either whenever I'm charged with speeding.
Do you believe a traffic infraction is a crime?
Depends on the state. Some states say they're petty offenses. Others say they're civil, like Arizona, for example. Others say they are crimes. But simply misdemeanors. It depends on the state.
Okay, so let's say we're in a state where it's a misdemeanor and it's not a crime. Where's my accuser? You just said the accuser has to appear.
Deciding officer.
That's a witness, not an accuser. Nope. You just said before that if it were civil, and I don't necessarily agree with you, but if it's civil, I have to appear. That's what you said.
Oh, you said it was.
You were saying you as the accuser would have to appear. So I'm saying in a state where traffic infraction, which that's already been ruled by the Supreme Court many times, it's not a crime.
Right. Yes, but they're petty offenses.
Okay.
They're not crimes.
So it's civil. Let's say it's civil.
No, they're not all civil, but Arizona, for example, they are in fact considered civil infractions.
Okay. Where's the accuser?
The arresting officer.
It is not the cop. No.
Yes, it
is.
is.
I was a cop, dude. I was not an accuser. I was a witness.
How police operates differs from state to state. I mean, that's a thing.
Dude.
In New Hampshire, the police actually adjudicate traffic infractions themselves.
So they act as a prosecutor. So they act as a prosecutor.
In New Hampshire, yes, they actually adjudicate traffic issues.
So they practice law without a license.
Yeah, I mean that's New Hampshire. They have the
well, that's a felony.
The state. No, it's not a felony. The states have the right to dictate how they
it is in Tennessee.
Law. Okay, that's Tennessee, not New Hampshire. Okay, that's Tennessee, not New Hampshire. Again, the laws are different from state to state. Like I just told you that Arizona explicitly treats traffic violations as a civil. In New Jersey, they're somewhat they're quasi-criminal, but they're criminal in effect.
And just because I might be ignorant on that, would that mean if you're an attorney, bar licensed attorney in New Jersey, that you could go to Arizona and practice without getting a bar license in Arizona?
Oh, hell no. I have to.
Oh, but a cop can. But a cop can.
Okay.
That makes perfect sense. I don't even know what to say to the word "and." I mean, you can't do it, having gone to law school and being a licensed attorney in New Jersey. But Barney Rubble copy guy who's only been on the road for 2 months can do it. And you don't have a problem.
I don't know the rules are in terms of reciprocity for police officers. I can only tell you how it is for the law for lawyers.
Okay.
And that's the thing, Artie, right there, is that we don't disagree. All of these things absolutely apply to lawyers and attorneys. Like all of the statutes, all of the codes, all of the rules of procedure, the way that the court moves, everything that you're talking about absolutely applies to lawyers and attorneys, and that's not what we're debating here.
I don't think I ever disagree with that. I think that the fundamental disagreement here is whether or not you guys are also subject to those certain laws and procedures. That's,
if I may, the fundamental disagreement here is you don't think that we can believe what we wish and that we have to be slaves.
No, I think the fundamental difference is that you can believe whatever you want to believe, but reality disagrees with you.
Hey, Artie, look, we do believe in the process of law and the process of procedures, okay? We absolutely agree with that. We absolutely understand that you have to proceed within a court setting a certain way, and you have to move within the law, okay? You cannot move outside of the law. And this is why, man and woman who sits up on the bench with the black robe get a lot of training in what the law actually is. Because an attorney is an attorney at law. A judge acts in law. They have to move within the law. They cannot be at law, because then we would be in a lawless society. So we are not sitting here and saying we do not believe in the law and we do not believe in moving and having procedures to move through court with. What we're saying is that we don't believe in the statutory codified system of law that the legislatures has made for the citizens and for attorneys and lawyers and people of the like who consent to going along with those procedures. Just like it's different in Arizona than New Jersey, than, South Carolina, Tennessee, California, it's different everywhere. There is a fundamental common thread of law that is the undercurrent of how all of those procedures, administrations, how they administer the law, how all of that stuff developed from, comes from a fundamental thread of truth, which is the actual law. And the evidence of that law can be found in case law. But it has to be fair and equitable and just, because that's what separates true law from fake law or from unjust case law. That's what the common law and that's what natural rights are. And even if you don't understand it, even if you don't agree with it, judges, for the most part, do. I am actually really surprised at what happened in North Carolina. And I'm incredibly surprised that it went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And you talk about reality.
I can't talk.
I
can't speak to what your circumstances are with that. I understand that you had some sort of issue with the Mr. Ramo. I don't know. I didn't see any of those videos, so I can't really speak to that.
Hey, can I ask you? I wish to ask you a question. Like, okay, if you do me wrong, okay, let's just say we'll call you Billy Bob, and you steal some stuff and shoot my dog, and I go down to the local magistrate because I can't find you to have a conversation, and I'm like, hey, Billy Bob, I've got a witness. Actually, I've got two witnesses right here with me, John and Gus, and they saw him do it, and he ran, and I wish to swear out a warrant for his arrest.
Mm-hmm.
And, and of course I affirm on the record, swear or affirm on the record, hey, to the facts therein. He writes it down, or you write it down. Different states do it different ways. And I swear that warrant out for that man's arrest. Do you agree that I can do that?
Maybe. It depends. I get citizens filing a criminal complaint. It depends on the jurisdiction that you're in. Some states allow that, some don't. It depends on where what state you're in. I know in Tennessee that
you're saying
you can bring something to a grand jury as a citizen, and I know in many areas.
No, man, I can go up to the magistrate and swear out a warrant for whatever I want to, but I better back it up. And really, you can do that in any state. If somebody does you wrong, you have a right to bring charges. I don't have to ask somebody's permission to do that, but I better not lie in court or they're going to arrest me for perjury. But so let me ask you this: if you go down, so let's just say North Carolina, because it's like Tennessee, you can do that. So you go down and you're like, hey, this cat did this, this, and this. I wish to swear out a warrant for their arrest. Because they're a judge, are they above the law and they don't have to do it? Does the magistrate get to tell me, no? That man's a judge. There's no way there's no way I can sign that. He's a superior court judge or district judge. I'm a magistrate. I'm not going to sign that. Is that okay?
I would say no. If the sole reason, and again, context matters, but if the sole reason the magistrate says I'm not going to do that simply by virtue of the guy who hit you is a judge, no, they can't do that.
All right. What if they lie to me and say I can't do it when it's very clear your terms that the laws of North Carolina say I can? What if the magistrate stands right to my face and lies and says, oh, you can't do that. You've got to go file a report, and then the deputy will actually make the charge on behalf of the state. And now let's just go with just give me the default position. I'm telling the truth, and that's an absolute barefaced lie. So that magistrate would literally be committing a felony, an abuse of power, lying under oath, because they're always under oath, right?
Mm-hmm.
And taking away my redress of grievance. So I'm asking you, is that okay?
Again, assuming everything what you just said is true, then no, that's not okay.
Okay, so then, because we wish to be courteous and try to work with people, let's say I go to the sheriff department and I say, can I speak to a deputy, please? Well, absolutely, sir. Now, I'm in a sheriff department lobby at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, a public building. Would you agree? It's a public building. Deputy comes out. I say, hey, man, this man acting as judge did this, 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 this. The magistrate told me this, 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 and this. And he looks at me and says, I'm not going to take a report. I don't see anything wrong here. But I do see somebody else committing a crime. And I look at him and I say, really? What's that? And he says, you're trespassing. Do you think that's okay?
Again, I don't know the circumstances of the situation, and assuming that you are...
I just told you the circumstance.
again, assuming everything that you said before is true and everything is being weighed, every part of the context of the story is being weighed in your favor. No, that's not okay. And however,
then what do you do?
Huh?
Then what do I do? What do I do? Now, granted, it's a big assumption here. I'm going to give that to you, but just play my little game. Let's assume or presume that I'm telling you the truth. There's not three sides to this story. This is it. What do I do? If the whole state tells me to get bent, the magistrate lies, the judge commits an act of theft, robbery, extortion, racketeering, kidnapping, and they just tell me, if you come to the sheriff's department to try to tell the sheriff, we're going to arrest you for trespassing because you're trespassing on private property, which it is. It's not public, but it's private, but that's okay. Let's just say all that happened. What do I do?
Well, if what you say is true, again, going with your caveats, your only redress is the feds. File a federal action.
So I go to the feds and they say, you know what, it's a judge. Go screw yourself. We're not getting involved. It's out of our jurisdiction. Is it out of their jurisdiction? After all, they are in the United States, right?
Right. I don't know. I mean, again, you're filing making a claim against the state that the state is, depriving you.
No, I made it against a man called Thomas McAvoy Britton. I didn't make it.
Okay, so now so this is about, okay. But throughout your entire endeavor, you were saying that the state is basically covering for him, right?
No, I'm saying everybody
the magistrate, the sheriff's
is
officer
doing that. Well, Maggie, Jimmy, Bobby, Tommy, Ronnie, yeah.
They're like the
because they're always man and woman.
Yeah.
So you see my point. I'm just asking you.
I guess
what do we do? What do we do? The feds tell us to get bent. All the attorneys laugh at us. The sheriff department says they're a private company. You can't be in this lobby unless we give you permission. And
I'm pretty sure the sheriff's department didn't say you're a private company.
Dude, they just said they're going to arrest us for trespassing in a public friggin' building that the tax dollars pay for.
Okay.
They're saying it's private.
Are you? Oh God! Are you literally going to say that you have the right to enter it into a military base after hours because you paid the taxes on it?
Dude, I have a right to enter a sheriff's office at 2:00 in the afternoon to file a redress.
But hold on now. Public property. Do public property not have hours? Are they not allowed to have hours?
Dude, it's 2:00 in the afternoon. It closes at 5. When we came in there, they said,
if you're causing a disruption, I'm not saying you were,
dude.
I'm not saying you. Again, I'm not saying you were, but if you're causing,
I know, but you're trailing. You're trailing. I came in there completely courteous. I'm telling you, 2:00 in the afternoon.
Do you believe in the right to own a firearm or a gun?
I own one.
Okay, so you obviously believe in the right to bear arms.
Yeah.
Okay. What if the government said that they were going to come and take all of your guns, and they were going to be tyrannical? Okay, let's just, for the sake of argument and to cut it all short, let's just say right is right and wrong is wrong, and the government is absolutely doing wrong, and they are going to take your life and your children's life and your grandchildren's life and your cousins and your nephews and your aunts and your uncles. They're going to kill them all. Okay?
And your dog.
Would you fight that? Or would you just lay down and say, oh, it's the government, so I guess they can do whatever they want?
I mean, in your hypothetical situation, no, I would resist. But I mean, you put in a very, very, very grandiose hypothetical situation there. I'm going to put that caveat in place.
What circumstance would you just?
You said the government is literally going the next day, going to come in and kill me.
Well, what about this? What circumstance would you just give up your gun because the legislature said they're going to take it?
I'm sorry?
What circumstance would you surrender all your firearms just because the legislature told you to? You said you would resist that, so I'm asking you,
Right.
what scenario would you just say, well, okay, the legislature said I had to give up all my firearms that I bought. I have $10,000 worth of firearms. I'm just going to give them to them. Would you do that? Because they passed legislation that said it's illegal. Why not?
Because I don't think that's correct. I think that's a clear violation of the Second Amendment.
So if I want to smoke weed and have weed and the legislature says, hey, reality check, buddy, you can't have that. I'm just supposed to bend over and say, thank you, sir. May I have another?
Yeah. Weed isn't protected like firearms are.
Dude, are you serious? You have a right to property and contract? Yeah.
I know you don't understand the distinction between the two. I get that, but I mean,
it's not semantical, brother. I have a right to private contract and property.
Yeah, furthermore,
this is going towards that we have between each other.
Can we address the fact that the Ninth Amendment secures all rights prior to the Constitution? That whatever was lawful before is lawful today. Those. Go ahead.
I would like to thank Artie for coming out, and enduring us for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, Artie, would you ever want to come back and answer questions?
Thanks for being a good sport.
If I get the chance to ask some questions on my own, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can ask whatever questions you wish. That's
dude.
The show mainly people to ask questions.
And if you haven't figured out, John and I love to talk, so we can answer them.
Clearly, you wouldn't have a talk show if you didn't enjoy.
Oh yeah. You have been a good sport, man. We do really appreciate the fact that you came and spent 2 hours with us. That's awesome.
Well, I would say likewise. In most instances, people, everybody else says I'm a troll. I get that, whenever I go into the YouTube comments, but I at least try to actually engage, and most of the time I get blocked. So this is the first time I'm able to actually have a one-to-one with you, and so I appreciate that. So I do thank you guys for that.
Oh, anytime, brother. What it's all about.
Yeah, we look at it the same way, and if people like us, if common sense people can't just come together and talk about our differences and work them out in a civil way, which is the real reason that civil government was formed. Like, I agree with a lot of what you said about why civil government was formed, okay? But I also understand that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And John Locke, who wrote the Second Treatise of Government, said that whenever governments are formed, they eventually become tyrannical. And the only thing that you can do when the government becomes tyrannical is walk away from it. And when you have enough people walking away from that government, you form a new government, a new system of government that works for all of the people. And so basically that's kind of the fundamental idea. Because if people do that, it takes away all of their power. Just like you said earlier in the conversation, they get their power from us. And if we walked away and implemented something that worked for everybody, that did a better job than what they're doing now, then I believe that could be the best possible outcome without some type of violence or bloodshed. But history tends to predict that when people do that, the people who have power typically do not like to give it away or lose it, and they involve themselves in violence to keep the state of the government, to keep any type of free thought oppressed. And the thing that I see, and I don't know what you see in this world, but the thing that I see is that if we enter into a 100% oppressive form of government, there's so much technology and there's so many ways to spy on people that there won't be any way out. You know, it will be a complete encapsulation, like everybody has a cell phone. Well, what is a cell? It's something that's sectioned off by itself, like a single cell organism or a gel cell, you know, and everybody's in their cell phone all day long, and we are not communicating and spending the time with each other that we should, and that's just one problem that I see, and I really do appreciate you coming out, and whenever you wish, you can come out and ask us questions for 2 hours.
Hey, and another thing, Artie, like, as a cop, I just remember this mentality of us, them, us, them, us, them. Like, there was this derogatory, demeaning kind of outlook, and you know what I'm talking about, especially in the court system, when they look at someone who expresses a thought that's different than the herd, they are automatically ostracized, cut out, ridiculed, labeled sovereign citizens. How dare you express that? This is what the herd's doing. By God, you're going to sit down and do it. But the us mentality, us them thing, you know it's real. I know it's real. And that is, you know, the last time I checked, and we're all part of the same thing. I mean, like, there's no us them. You know, it's us. It's just us. Mm-hmm. You know, our families. I mean, I lived in Jersey for a long time, worked up there. I mean, we may know some of the same folks. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like you and I.
Well, I do see that. I do understand where you're coming from in the whole us them. Especially, you know, I do. There is that in the courts, but again, as my brother is a police officer, he also tells me kind of what, you know, kind of what I've seen, what sort of the same thing. It's just the matter of, you know, it's not even about, you know, at least in my instance, it's not about ostracization, but more of, you know, where the hell did they get these ideas from? You know, and we kind of most of the time when in many instances when I see some videos and, you know, I see some of these videos myself, most of the time it's no, usually, I don't know. Sometimes we'll disagree, and many times you'll get a judge who's a bit of a hothead and will, you know, smack you around and throw you in contempt. But other times, I do see the people looking at you like you just grew 3 heads, like wondering what are you talking about. You know, for like, I guess for me, the whole idea, I find it absolutely entertaining. You know, when somebody, you know, I'm here for, you know, they're in Colorado, in a traffic ticket, and the guy is saying, you know, we're under an Admiralty maritime jurisdiction, and the judge is looking at you, is like, sir, we are a mile above sea level. What the hell are you talking about? So that, I guess that, you know, where that's where we're kind of see each other in a different in a different way. But again, like I said, I appreciate you guys inviting me, bringing me on, and you know, I enjoy the you know, I know these things can be heated, but that's what makes it fun, right?
Right?
Oh, dude, we're not mad at all.
No. I'm not saying I'm mad either. I'm just saying, you know, having a lively back and forth. Let's put it that way. You know,
it's a good call,
awesome.
Artie, and I'm really glad you came out.
Or hilarious.
Hey,
to sit there a mile above sea level and say we're under maritime admiralty, and you can't do this and you can't do that. We absolutely find that hilarious. So we
and I'm not gonna say that you necessarily do that. And I agree. I don't want to apologize. You know, you're right. I did eventually subconsciously say y'all and, you know, try to lump you guys together, but that's my fault, and I will own up to that unfair generalization. But that
hey, you have to admit we're probably a little different, aren't we?
Yeah, just a bit. Yeah.
Hey, I would ask you something.
John, before I go, John, I do want to know if you saw that I commented on your video about Carl Lentz.
You don't
Oh man,
Sometimes we get email
that
saying,
guy.
man, Carl wouldn't me off.
Yeah, that dude, he's something else.
I just like
you
lost
what?
it when I found out that you knew who he was, because he's kind of infamous. That's not famous, but infamous, you know. So I thought that was entertaining.
Hey, I would like to ask at some point soon if Gus wishes to participate, but I definitely want to get a conference call between you, JC, myself, and Gus if possible, because there is some information that I would like to share with you directly, and I think you'll find it of great interest. Well, actually, it would be JC and I and sharing it because we were involved in it together. But it's a case, and I would definitely like to share it with you.
And Artie, you can email us at jcandshaman@gmail.com.
Okay, I think I saw that on the site there.
And the case is a personal case, like it's something that was with me.
Okay. Yeah, no, yeah, that's fine. I mean, as I just told you, I mean, fucking legal profession's a racket. Make you pay like $500,000 just to practice in a different state, but that's an entirely separate discussion that I want to get. Yeah, I mean, okay. Let me. I know we mentioned the maritime thing, but I really have to ask this of you guys. Do you think I'm a foreign agent?
For like the Gestapo or like the USSR or something?
No. There are certain folks who, by virtue of me being a lawyer, I'm not a citizen. I'm nobody's citizen anymore. Like I relinquished my citizenship. Like they think I'm literally a foreign agent.
Because you're an Esquire.
Yeah, the whole idea that
whole,
putting Esquire on my last name somehow means that I'm a knight. No. I'm a knight in England, I guess.
That's retarded.
Hey.
Thank God.
Yeah, you know what, Artie? And I'm actually.
I didn't think you guys thought that, but I think that one far and away is the one that I'm just looking at it like, what is happening here?
Well, there's a lot of foundation for that kind of stuff, and it's easy to see where it comes from. I think that was something to do in 1946.
I understand nobility and everything like that. I understand because that's in the Constitution that talks about, Congress cannot confer titles of nobility and annulment clause.
Actually, I think that particular thing you just mentioned, as far as the Esquire title, I think a lot of that derives from the Foreign Agents Registration Act in 1946 or something like that. But I'm very familiar with the original 13th Amendment. That's where I began my research. But I think the people who think that, I think they rely on something else though.
It's just one of those things where, like, it would have been nice if they told me that in law school, that putting ESQ next to my name means I'm relinquishing my citizenship, but I never got that memo.
Yeah, I don't think you have an official title.
My understanding, attorneys can put ESQ on their last names or not. It's a custom. It is just a professional custom. That's the extent of what I understand it. Throughout my understanding, I never had the idea that it meant I'm a knight.
Another word for customs is common law, because the customs of a society are the common law of that society, and the customs of the legal society, where you would put an ESQ behind your name, is that common law.
Well, common law, has certain meanings, but one of them certainly is that a common law is an unwritten system of law that represents the mores and values and customs of a populace.
Exactly. Of a particular society, like the legal society.
Well, but also common law of, United States or the common law of Rhode Island, they have
Well,
or the
common law of the
England.
The common law of the United States is described at the federal website of the Department of Justice as being the decisions of the federal courts.
Right. It's because common law in that context is judge-made law or case precedent. So, for example,
Exactly.
the common law burglary is the breaking and entering of a dwelling house of another at nighttime. That all those different types of elements were done by judges over decades and hundreds of years, to formulate that, murder, unlawful killing of another with malice aforethought. That sentence is a common law construction of the crime of murder that states eventually either, put into, codified. I know that's a dirty word, but they codified it as such, or they have modified it slightly and so on. That's another form of common law, is that case precedent or judge-made law that's handed down over time.
It's customs. So
right.
The dental society, the brain surgery society, whatever society you belong to, whatever their customs are the common law of that society.
I don't know if I would characterize that as common law, but sure.
Well, it's the customs. The customs of Sharia law, for instance, that's their common law. And whether they live here or live in another country, that's still their customs. That's still their common law, whether we agree with it or not. And so there's a lot we have left to talk about. I'd love for you to come back.
Yeah, definitely. But I agree with that. I actually do have to jet though. It's 11:22 here, so
20 minutes. Yeah,
we're
20 minutes over.
All right, dude. Well, thanks for coming out.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, it was awesome.
All right, guys, you take care.
Look forward to doing it again sometime.
I don't think next week's gonna work. But let me get back to you. Maybe sometime later in the month.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, just email us and we'll stay in contact, and we'll just set up another call whenever you wish. And somebody also wished for me to tell you that they thought you should maybe read Fruit from the Poisonous Tree, written by Melvin Stamper. So I don't know if you wish to read that or not. I actually just ordered Judge Scalia's book about interpreting law and how to interpret legal text. So I can't wait for that to show up. It should be here in a day or two.
Sounds good. What's the name of the author?
Melvin Stamper, something like that. Melvin
Stanford? Like the university?
Stamper, like Stamper.
Okay. All right, I'll take a look at it.
Okay.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you for coming on. And we look forward to hearing from you soon.
All right, sounds good. Take care.